Welcome to Aquatic Biology. Today, we are diving into a critical topic, the causes of aquatic pollution. Water is the foundation of all life, but human activities are increasingly threatening our freshwater ecosystems. In this lesson, we will explore exactly how pollution enters our water bodies, the major sources driving this crisis, and the mathematical tools we use to measure and predict its impact. Let us get started. To understand aquatic pollution, imagine a pristine, clear swimming pool in your backyard. If one person drops a tiny pebble into it, the pool remains perfectly fine. The system can handle it. But if hundreds of people start dumping buckets of mud, hot water, and soapy chemicals into it every single day, the pool's filtration system will completely collapse. The water quickly turns into a toxic, murky soup. This is exactly what happens to our natural water bodies, like lakes and rivers, when human activities overwhelm their natural ability to clean themselves. Now that we have a mental picture, let us formally define what we are talking about. Aquatic pollution is the introduction of physical, chemical, or biological substances into a water body at concentrations that degrade water quality and harm aquatic life. It is not just about visible trash. Often, the most dangerous pollutants are invisible chemicals, or even just excess heat that alters the delicate physicochemical balance of the ecosystem. When this balance is disrupted, essential elements like dissolved oxygen are depleted, making it impossible for fish and other organisms to survive. Building on that definition, where exactly is this pollution coming from? There are 5 primary sources, all driven by human activities. First, agricultural runoff carries heavy loads of fertilizers into waterways. Second, industrial discharge releases toxic chemicals directly from factories. Third, untreated sewage from rapidly growing urban areas introduces biological hazards. Fourth, thermal pollution occurs when power plants dump scorching hot water into cool rivers. And finally, devastating oil spills cause massive, immediate ecological damage. Each of these sources introduces foreign elements that our aquatic ecosystems simply cannot process fast enough. Understanding these sources is not just an academic exercise, it is critical for our survival. Freshwater is a highly finite resource on our planet. When we pollute rivers and lakes, we are actively destroying our own drinking water supplies. A major consequence of sources like agricultural runoff is a process called eutrophication. The excess nutrients cause explosive algae growth, which eventually dies and decays, consuming all the oxygen in the water. This creates massive dead zones where absolutely no aquatic life can survive due to oxygen starvation. We must quantify these impacts to stop them. To truly understand how much a specific cause pollutes a river, we cannot just guess. We use a mathematical tool called the mass balance equation. Conceptually, this formula calculates a weighted average of the clean water and the dirty water based entirely on how fast each stream is flowing. C final is the resulting pollutant concentration in the river. Q river and Q waste are the flow rates of the river and the pollution source, respectively. C river and C waste are their starting concentrations. If the waste flow rate increases, or if the waste concentration increases, the final pollution level in the river will dangerously rise. Let us see this formula in action with a concrete example. We are given a clean river flowing at 10 cubic meters per second with a natural background concentration of 2 milligrams per liter. An industrial plant discharges wastewater at 2 cubic meters per second, but with a highly toxic concentration of 50 milligrams per liter. We need to find the final mixed concentration. We substitute these values into our mass balance equation. The numerator calculates the total mass of the pollutant entering per second, which is 20 from the river plus 100 from the waste. Dividing the total mass of 120 by the combined flow rate of 12 gives us our final answer. The industrial discharge spiked the river's pollution from a safe 2 to a harmful 10 milligrams per liter. Now that we have calculated the impact, let us visualize exactly what is happening physically. In this diagram, you can see the clean river flowing in from the left. It has its own natural flow rate and a very low baseline concentration of particles. From the top, the industrial wastewater pipe introduces a highly concentrated, dark stream of pollutants. Where they meet, the two streams combine. The total volume of water moving to the right is now the sum of both flows, and the pollutants are distributed throughout this new volume. This visual perfectly represents the numerator and denominator of the mass balance equation we just solved, showing how the downstream flow becomes a blended average of the two inputs. Moving beyond chemical waste, we must address another major cause of aquatic degradation: thermal pollution. This occurs when industrial facilities, particularly nuclear and coal power plants, draw in cool river water to cool their machinery and then dump that scorching hot water back into the ecosystem. While no toxic chemicals might be added, the excess heat itself acts as a severe pollutant. It artificially raises the natural temperature of the river. Because aquatic organisms are cold-blooded, their body temperatures and metabolic rates are entirely dictated by their environment. Even a slight increase in water temperature can severely harm sensitive fish species. To measure this thermal impact, we can use the exact same mass balance principle we used for chemicals. Conceptually, instead of tracking the mass of a chemical pollutant, we're tracking heat energy. We substitute chemical concentration with temperature. T final represents the new thermal equilibrium of the river. Q river and Q waste are still our flow rates. T river is the cool natural temperature, and T waste is the scorching discharge temperature. By calculating this weighted average, we assume water density and specific heat remain constant, which is a safe assumption here. If the power plant discharges hotter water or pumps it out faster, the river's final temperature will spike. Let us apply this thermal formula to a real-world scenario. Imagine a river flowing at 40 cubic meters per second at a cool 15 degrees Celsius. A nearby nuclear power plant discharges cooling water at 10 cubic meters per second, heated to 35 degrees Celsius. We want to find the final temperature. We plug these values into our adapted equation. The numerator calculates the total heat content factor, 600 from the river and 350 from the plant. We divide this combined heat factor of 950 by the total flow rate of 50. The math gives us a final mixed temperature of 19 degrees Celsius. The power plant has artificially heated the entire river by 4 degrees. You might look at that final answer of 19 degrees and think a 4-degree increase is small. But in aquatic biology, this shift is absolutely devastating. A sudden 4-degree rise completely disrupts the metabolism of native fish, causing them stress and increasing their need for oxygen. However, warmer water physically cannot hold as much dissolved gas as cold water, meaning the life-saving dissolved oxygen actually decreases just when the fish need it most. Furthermore, This artificial warmth triggers the rapid growth of toxic algal blooms. Our mathematical model proves just how easily human infrastructure can overwhelm the natural buffering capacity of a fragile ecosystem. We have covered a lot of ground today, so let us review the most important ideas. First, aquatic pollution occurs when human activities introduce substances or heat that completely overwhelm a water body's natural buffering capacity. Second, whether it is agricultural runoff causing dead zones or industrial pipes dumping chemicals, we can precisely track these impacts using the mass balance equation. Finally, we saw that pollution is not just chemical. Thermal discharge from power plants can raise water temperatures enough to suffocate aquatic life. Understanding and quantifying these causes is the first crucial step toward effective water conservation. You now have the foundational tools to analyze aquatic pollution.